Dude, we saw 4 bears,
2 grizzly.
2 black bear, 2 grizzly, tons of buffalo,
Yeah.
elk.
Buffalo are kind of boring at this point. We saw so many of them.
It's cool the first couple times, and then you're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Move along.
Let's
There's
go.
another
There's
buffalo.
only 2 lanes in this friggin' road.
Welcome to Guys Fishing Weekly. We don't just fish, we hug.
Hey everybody, before we get into today's show, I just have a few housekeeping items I wanted to touch on. We have opened the mailbag. That is mailbag@guysfishingweekend.com. Feel free to send in comments, questions, things you want us to talk about. We'll open that time and time again when it gets filled up and make sure we answer those questions, talk about those topics. So you can send those comments and questions into mailbag@guysfishingweekend.com. Also, the podcast is growing. We'd love to have you guys help in that growth. If you'd like, subscribe and comment. It really helps get this seen by other people. And also, if you could forward it along to a friend who you think the message might resonate with, that would be great as well. Today on the show, we're talking about a subject near and dear to our hearts, sobriety. We say at the end of the show, if you're struggling with any of this, if you don't know where to start, if you feel alone in the whole process, do not hesitate to reach out. We're here. We love talking about this topic, and we're here to help. So you're not alone in the process. You always have a friend here at GFW. So feel free to reach out and drop us a line. With that, let's get into the show. Hey, buddy.
Eddie!
What's going on, man?
What do you think's going on? Take a look behind us, bro.
Seriously? It's beautiful. It's crazy.
Unbelievable. Coming to you
Live from Teton National Park.
with the Tetons in the background, in case you haven't noticed yet.
Yeah. So this
Impressive.
is epic.
Unbelievable.
End of a great week of fishing up here.
Unreal. Been very, very good. The fishing gods have been kind to us. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially yesterday.
I mean, you
was
caught a 20-inch
yeah,
Yellowstone cutty yesterday
fish of a lifetime. The colors were unreal.
in a place we never would have imagined you would have caught it.
A big fish up on a small creek. It was, I'll never forget that one. That'll be one that yet lives in the annals of this dim brain for a long, long time.
You got to have some core memories. So
That's right. Yeah. No, that was a beautiful fish, but we've caught plenty of good fish. The Yellowstone cutties are gorgeous things. We caught some big brook trout.
we've all got the Grand Slam.
Yep. Grand Slam, the trout Grand Slam. So it's been impressive, man. It's good. Good stuff.
It's been a great trip.
Camping's been good.
Good. It's a vast land up here, though.
Yes.
Driving from place to place. I mean, I think we've put in 16 hours of driving and haven't even left this state.
Yeah, absolutely. Covered some miles, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Another great thing is that we've met some great people.
we have.
We've made some really great contacts up here. You're wearing the hat right there from.
Cutthroat Fly Shop down in Du Bois. Great guys. Robert Betts, his crew is awesome.
Great guides down there. They got a lot of water to fish, to take people on trips. So Cutthroat Fly Shop in Du Bois is a really cool place. Great shop, cool shop.
It's where I caught my biggest brook trout in my life. It was probably 14-inch brook trout.
Yeah, it was
big.
It was a big brook
Hardy.
trout. Beauty. In a tiny little creek too.
Also a tiny little creek.
Yep, we drove up a 4-wheel drive trail to get up there. That was good.
That was cool.
But yeah, we had dinner with Robert, and he's a good dude. Great shop, great guides.
Great little town.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Not a drive-through town. Just stay in there for a couple days. Got a lot of water to hit.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then we met up with the degenerate fish hippies, or at least one of them.
Yep.
Colton, a great guy, smart guy,
Yes.
full of nature knowledge.
Wildlife biologist and outdoor phenomena.
Yeah.
He was awesome. Fantastic.
Keep an eye out for him.
Yep. Yep.
He's going to write novels one day.
Yeah. The next generation of fishermen, those guys are. But they're doing really good stuff, and they value a lot of what we value in terms of community and bringing people together. And so, they're doing it the right way. So
100%.
good stuff. Living the dream.
And then we're headed down, see the Two Rivers Fly Shop down in Pinedale.
Yep, we'll meet up with them today.
Yep.
Eric Orum's the owner there, and so we're
looking forward to him having him on the podcast.
He'll be
a little bit down the road.
Yep. So we made some great connections and good stuff this week, man. It's been awesome.
And we also got a picture in front of Old Faithful.
Yes, we did. Popping off.
We're half tourist, half fisherman. So
you can't go to Yellowstone and not stop at Old Faithful.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Wildly crowded.
Golly.
A lot of people lined up to see that thing gush.
Eddie, what's your most memorable water we fished?
Most memorable,
what's your favorite?
That 14-inch brook trout was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just a dream river up there too. I love climbing over shit and stuff like that, and it was kind of like a fairy wonderland. It was so green compared to the surrounding area. Butterflies and it was just really
wildflowers.
Wildflowers,
cool.
yeah.
We were back up in there.
I think so. Parquet Creek, really, really cool creek.
That was great.
Definitely worth venturing off there. So that was probably mine. What about you?
Obviously the big fish was probably the most memorable moment. Just watching him sip that. I caught him on a foam body caddis that I tied myself.
Also awesome.
Which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't tie a ton of flies, but used one that I did, and that was pretty awesome. So just watching that fish roll over, that was probably it. I think the Lamar up in the park, the Lamar River was a lot of fun. That was a fun evening of fishing we did. There were some big fish in that river too.
That was definitely the most fun water, for sure.
Yeah. Big boulders.
I love climbing over that stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of things to hit. The Parquet Creek is more of a creek where you hit a hole once, twice, and then you're like moving quick.
Right.
And Lamar was awesome. You could stay in a hole and just keep getting action.
Fish
it was crazy.
Coming. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it almost like they didn't get scared. When you caught a fish out of a hole, you could just throw it back in. And another 12 would be there to hit it. It was awesome. And they were all big.
Yeah, there were some big fish in there, for sure. Yeah, that was a fun day. It was a fun evening of fishing, for sure. Dude, we saw 4 bears.
2 grizzly.
2 black bear, 2 grizzly, tons of buffalo.
Yeah.
Elk.
Buffalo are kind of boring at this point. We saw so many of them.
It's cool the first couple times, and then you're like, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Move along. There's another buffalo.
There's only 2 lanes in this friggin' road. Yeah, so, but we got to see some bears, which was really cool.
Bears were wicked cool.
Yeah, that was good. So we were in some pretty spots, man.
Yeah, saw some good stuff.
Been a great week.
Yeah. So we've pretty much solved all of our navigations on this trip too. So
yeah,
I think we can talk about one of our long-term navigations that we're always battling with on this spin around the sun. Sobriety. It's our topic for the day.
Recovery and sobriety. Both of us in it.
This is I have the math down, but I have to figure out the year. Yeah, I'm coming up on 11 years in October, the end of October.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man.
Yeah.
I think I'm 34 next year, 35 maybe.
It's awesome.
Yeah, for 35, I'm in my 34th, so it's a long time.
Cheers to that, man.
Yeah. Yes, cheers.
Little non-alcoholic beer in front of the Tetons.
NA beers, baby.
NA beers.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
It's one of my favorites. For all of you
Sam Adams.
People who love NA beers, Sam Adams, Just the Haze.
It's a goodie.
GFW favorite around here.
Indeed. And I'm so impressed with how far the NA beer scene has come.
It was crazy.
Back when I started, when I was
sober.
When I was sober. When I first got sober and I first started drinking NA beers to kind of, be part of the social realm. It was Budweiser had O'Doul's, Miller had Sharps.
Never
And
even heard of that one.
yeah, I don't even think they make it anymore. And Coors had Cutter, and it was like they were all
Yeah,
pretty tasteless. You know what I mean?
right.
Cutter was my favorite. I like that one the best. Yeah, Sharps. I don't even think they make it anymore. They tried, and it wasn't very good. Sorry, Miller.
It's it's amazing how like much they taste like beer and enjoyable at this point.
Yeah, at this point, yeah, definitely. And you can get different flavors. Yeah, it's come a long way. The market's come a long way. Those NA beers aren't even that great.
Right.
Was all you had to choose from. So it's come a long, long way.
Now it's got to be the
fast.
fastest growing market in the beverage world.
I would imagine. I'm still amazed at how, like you go into a restaurant and they're like, oh yeah, we have O'Doul's. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
there's still restaurants and bars that don't even carry very many.
I know.
But the stores have ton. I mean, liquor stores, you walk in, they have like coolers full of
Right.
them.
Well, and you have Heineken Zero is the other one that you find a lot of, which is actually now really good.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Oh.
So
There's some tips.
just some NA beer tips.
NA beer tips.
We drink.
Stay away from the spirits and the wine. The NA spirits and wine. No bueno.
I've never had NA spirits.
They don't taste like what they say they taste like.
Yeah.
Don't lie to us.
Great. I have no idea. I've never tasted. I've never had like non-alcoholic
Yeah.
anything.
Just
other
call it
than
like
beer.
a flavored drink base. You don't need to call it like fake whiskey because it doesn't taste like fake whiskey.
Right.
So, but that's enough yapping about NA drinks. People can figure all that stuff out. I guess, what has sobriety done for you?
I think when I first got sober, it was difficult in that I had to learn how to live almost like emotionally, because I was a drinker that medicated so much. I drank to forget. I drank to escape. I drank for all the wrong reasons. And so, when you become dependent on that, and I was a wake-up drinker to start my day kind of a thing. And so I had to learn how to feel everyday emotions and not be numbed to those. And so in doing that, I think sobriety has given me richness in my life. There was a time I spent a summer in Alaska, and a buddy and I drove up to Alaska and worked up in Alaska for a summer. And I was, drinking the entire time, the road trip up there, and then when we got there, we quickly found someone that did sell us pot, and I was drunk and stoned pretty much the entire summer. I saw some really cool stuff, but I didn't live that stuff. I wasn't super present in the moments, and so I regret a lot of that because I missed out on the richness of what a trip like that could give. And when I think about that kind of trip versus a kind of, it's a similar trip that we're doing now over the course of a week. I did that over the course of a summer, but, right, I'm like, the richness in the conversations that we have in the car, the things that we talk about, the time we share together, the things we see, the experiences we have, all of those things are so much more real and rich for me because I'm not numb while I'm going through it.
Yeah.
So I think, that's one thing sobriety has given me. It's also given me the opportunity to have a life, a family, kids, those relationships, with my own family, but growing my own family, a job, a career. I wouldn't have any of that if I was still drinking.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all been the gift of sobriety. And it's not always easy. It's tough.
Right.
But it's all of those things, friendships and all of that, I'm able to do and be a part of and have and grow and work at because I'm sober and I'm not medicated and I'm not numb to everything around me. So
For sure.
it's enriching. And
Yeah, I
it's,
mean, yeah.
yeah, go.
I like what you said about being present and experiencing things. I think for me, if you had asked that question to me, like this behind us and experiencing this, one, I don't know if I was ever to the point where I necessarily would have died from drinking, but I definitely was always about getting to the place to theoretically start drinking. The drinking was the event in a way.
Yep.
And I wouldn't lift my head up to like look at this so much. Not that I wouldn't have been like, oh, that's amazing, but I think it hits a little different when you take out that activity being the main attraction, and like, lift your head up a little, look at the surroundings and the moments, the people that are with you, things like that. I think are so huge for what I think I've grabbed from it.
Right.
There's obviously the other tangible career things, family things for sure. All of those things become more rich and better when you do become present and you're able to focus on the surroundings and the people and care more about that, because I do think drinking does become its own thing you have to service and like give energy to in a way. And when you take out that huge energy, I want to say suck, maybe it is a suck, but a huge energy depletion machine, the world does become a little bit greener and brighter and sunnier.
For sure. And that's interesting because that is, you know, that's one of the things that I remember about, every day I would wake up and I would be like, I'd start drinking or whatever, but I was always looking to, whether I was at work, what are we going to do after? Right.
Right.
That
Right.
kind of like, where are we going? What do
Right.
we do? Well, like, where's the party? What are we going to do?
No, the moment wasn't good enough.
Right. The work moment being there with them, it was always looking forward to, and then when you got there, like, how fucked up are we going to get? Like,
Right.
let's do some shots. Let's get, you know what I mean? It was just that cycle that you get into.
Right.
And so, I was never a mean drunk.
Yeah.
But I was that guy who was always like, dude, I love you, man. But next morning you're just fucking waking up and you'd say that to the next guy you're drinking with.
Right.
So there was nothing enriching about it. So yeah, I think that's an interesting take, and it's so true. Like,
But it's wild. Like you think about, okay, I wake up, I'm gonna go to work because I guess I have to. But all right, then what I'm gonna do after? And you put so much energy into like, all right, after I've got, this bar, this bar, this bar, and I got to hit all those, and I know I like, this drink at this bar and this at that bar. Like your mind is just like, just
consumed,
and you're just so in-depth planning. Like, all right, who are we gonna call? Who are we gonna invite? Like, who's gonna be able to go? Who's not gonna be able to go? And none of it's really about those people coming or hitting those bars. It really is like, I don't know, your body just wants it, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
But you don't think about it that way. You just think about, and it's so like future oriented, because even when you're having that drink, you're thinking about the next bar on the stop or the next,
right.
next, but you're not really experiencing that story. And I know we were talking about, like in the car on this trip, just some of the lost memories.
Ugh.
Not in a sense, I mean, maybe from big nights of drinking, but just like, the not even being present in that moment in a way. Like I know for me, a lot of when I drank, I almost kind of like faded away from the present.
Right.
I faded away like into the background, like sat a little closer to the, like it wasn't the social lubricant as much for me as it is for some people.
Right.
And you just like, regret isn't a great word, but like you do regret, like, could I have been more in that moment, enjoying that?
Right. I absolutely, it's funny because, when we were talking about that, the way that alcohol functioned for you was real different the way that it functioned for me.
Yeah.
And so those are really kind of interesting. You know what I mean? Like you described that as like when you started drinking more and more, you kind of faded into the background, almost like standing against the wall. You were more like a wallflower than
Right.
a part of the thing. And I was in the middle of the dance floor. I was, you know,
Right.
it gave me, I don't know, maybe the fake courage to be something that I was afraid that I couldn't do if I didn't have it. You know
Right.
what I mean? It almost acted as that for me, and so that's why I liked doing it. Drunk Reid was so much better than sober Reid at that point. You know what I mean? And it's interesting too that like I quit drinking when I was 22, and so I quit young. I was
Yeah.
really, you know, and there was a lot of people that are like, well, don't you just think it's like that was college, and that was like just the way, you know, people always are, and I'm like, yes, but as I got into being 21 and 22, it wasn't changing. It wasn't, things weren't different. I wasn't just a college kid anymore. It was out of college and still like, whoa, yeah. I couldn't do college in the heart of my drinking. I had to withdraw from college and work and figure some stuff out
Yeah.
because I couldn't do school. I couldn't do much of anything the way I was, you know.
Right.
I could hold an hourly job in the kitchen, and that was it. And so, yeah, so it was, you know, it's interesting how alcohol functions differently for people because there are functional alcoholics, you
Right.
know. That wasn't me, dude.
Yeah.
I was incredibly dysfunctional. I couldn't have a relationship. I couldn't have, you know, those kinds of things and jobs and like meaningful careers and no way.
Right.
Yeah. So it's funny how it's interesting how that works, how alcohol and your relationship with it is different
Yeah.
for different people.
Right. I think it's interesting, you say, don't you just think, these pushbacks that you get from people, like, don't you just think that's the way college kids are?
Yeah.
Don't you just think your drinking was normal or in control or whatever? It's so weird, the justifications that you get from people.
Yeah. And I think that stems from not understanding, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I really do. I think that it's hard. You know, there's a lot of people who subscribe to, well, it's just about willpower. You
Yeah.
know, just don't drink.
Right.
It's fucking hard. It's not that simple.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? It's
Right.
not that simple, especially with the physical addiction side of stuff.
Right.
You know, that's real tough to do. But I think it takes, you know, it takes willpower to say, you know, like, I can't do this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand why I can't do it. And for me, I've always had an attitude of, you know, there are some people I know that when they quit drinking, when they get sober, they can't be around it. It's too hard. And I found a kind of a different avenue when I got sober because I was working in a bar and a restaurant when I got sober. And the people around me, my support group in that place, were so incredibly supportive of me.
Yeah.
You know, the owner of the bar, Dave Tobin, you know, told me when I was like, I'm going home. I'm going through an outpatient program. I'm going to go stay with my folks and get sober. And he was like, whenever you are ready and whenever you want, you always have a job here. You can come back and I'll make you a manager and we'll, you know. And the people around me even. So I got sober and I came back and I went to work for Dave in a bar. And you know, people told me, I remember I went to my first AA meeting in Boulder and they were like, here's my number when you relapse. You'll never make it, da-da-da. And I got turned off by that.
Yeah.
You know, and I've been in some AA stuff and attended some meetings. I'm not like probably a fully participant. My brother's very, very active in it, and it's been an incredible experience for him. But I got really turned off by that because people were more, you know, they were more speaking about the addiction rather than the person. And I think every person probably runs sobriety a little bit differently than, right? 12 steps work for a lot of people. I went through it and it helped me in a certain aspect. But then it became real personal for me in the way that I function, in the way that I do it. And so, but you know, like I say, I didn't take the the traditional road to sobriety like some people would. I did go through a program, an outpatient program, and did a lot of work around that. But then it was a lot of just me doing my thing and talking with other people when they needed it and when they wanted to talk to me about it. But it's different. It's interesting the path that people take through sobriety, and I don't think there is. I don't subscribe to the you have to do it this way.
Right.
And that was what I got a lot of. But I had a phenomenal, my best friends were in that bar working with me at that time, and they were all supportive. My roommates were, and I've always been the kind of recovering alcoholic who is, I'm just because I can't do it doesn't mean everybody can't do it.
Yeah.
I'm a fucking idiot. I can't figure it out. I don't know what it is, right? Yeah, but that doesn't mean everybody else can't drink socially. So it never bothered me that other people, I was able to be around it.
Right. I think it speaks, you said earlier that you weren't good at building, or, you weren't able to build relationships and friendships and things like that. But I think you clearly did because, for those people to have supported you through that stuff. I mean, I constantly say to myself or to people who ask, I don't think I could have done it if I didn't change geography and the people around me. And it's no discredit to them. I don't think that my friends back home or family or anybody wouldn't have been supportive in that. But I think there is something so much about changing your surroundings and changing habits, giving yourself space to change things. I think that really helped me be more successful more quickly. Like any way that you can remove things that sap your willpower,
Right.
is huge. And luckily, I had moved to a new city. I had a very supportive wife, but I was in a new city with making new friends. I could forge a whole new identity in a way, and that made it a lot easier, I think, but obviously you were successful as well. So I could see kind of why some of the AA people were like,
Right.
when you
Right.
when you do relapse,
Right.
because you did choose a little bit of maybe a harder path, being around it all the time, being in that culture, whereas I was able to much more remove myself from it.
Yeah.
So I can appreciate that, but it also goes with, no two paths of sobriety are the same.
Right.
And I think the one constant is, though, among all of them is like, focus on what you can do now, in this moment. Focus on this one day and wake up tomorrow and focus on that one day. Don't think about getting to 11 or 34 years. Focus on just getting through today.
Yep.
And I think if you get past a certain point, and this goes for anything, this isn't just sobriety, at some point it does become normal, right? But if you focus on one day with the mindset of like, this is me now, whether it's working out or whatever, there's a long run type of marathon that comes along with doing it. But just focus on what you can do today, and that'll add up to the ultimate thing.
Yeah, there were times, early on when I first quit where it was, it was focus on the next 5 minutes. It was focus on the next hour. It was, you know what I mean? Like even breaking it down into that, whatever you need at whatever moment. And so, yeah, there was, I agree with that. It's, you can't get overwhelmed with the idea of, I need to get to. You can't do that.
Right.
You got to be in it right now. And I think too, I did have friends and I did have really good support group around me. I guess what I meant by that is that I wouldn't be able to have like long-term relationships. I was thinking about my wife and my marriage and raising kids when I said that. Probably that's more where that was coming from. But certainly, yeah, it's definitely it becomes a way you live and not something that necessarily you achieve. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
becomes who you are. It's funny
It's an
because,
identity.
yes, because after all this time, I don't even think about it now. I'm like,
No, yeah.
you know what I mean? It's not that I don't think about it. There are times when, there's still times when when it would be cool to be able to.
Right.
But, and I put it this way: when I meet somebody new now, and we're out like, hey, let's go get a beer. Okay. And you go out and they're like, hey, what kind of beer? Can I get you beer? And I'm like, oh no, I don't drink. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. They say I'm sorry. Like they feel bad that they offered me a drink when, and I say I don't drink.
Right.
And it's just funny. And I'm like, oh, it's no big deal, dude. You get to get a beer. I'll get a soda, an NA, whatever, and it's just interesting because their first initial reaction is like, oh shit, like I offended you. Like they don't know how to deal with,
Right.
So there's a lot of people that don't know how to deal with it. And it's just like, oh, dude, I don't care. I've been 30 years not drinking. It's not a big deal. So that's kind of like the only time when I feel like, I have to kind of explain who I am, but it is who I am. And it's like, and it's no big deal. And I've never had anybody be like, well, why don't you drink? Like people are they're very open to it, but they just don't know how to kind of respond to
I
it.
think new people are much more likely to be like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
I think it's the old people, or not old people, but people that used to be in your life, or maybe still are, that have an image of the identity that you are.
Yeah.
That are the ones that are like, oh man, you're a drinker in my mind. Why aren't you drinking anymore? Why,
Right.
And that's the hard part of what you have to get past.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
When you meet new people, so it's all good.
Yeah, I think like I said, the new people are usually very accepting.
Absolutely.
I think it's the harder one is when you have to change somebody else's
Right. Opinion.
in the identity that they have built up about you in their head.
Yeah. Yep.
More
100%.
so than creating your own identity for yourself is hard enough. Creating people who have an identity about you already is real hard.
Yeah. I think that's when like, take it or leave it. Yep, this is it, dude.
Yeah.
This is who I am. Yeah, and I definitely, there were people that from my past that didn't. Whether it was, there were people who I drank with who I lost. There was some of that. There is loss that goes along with becoming sober because they're not ready to accept it, or they're not ready. They look inward and question themselves, and they don't like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Whatever it is. But I definitely lost, a couple of people who I thought were, would support me through it. But that's okay. That's just part of the, that's just part of the nature of the beast in it, I guess. So.
For sure.
So yeah, but then you got to learn how to deal with that kind of loss too.
Yeah.
As confusing as it was at the time, but.
Yeah, I think anytime you change, that's just kind of the definition of change,
Right. Right.
And
massive
again,
change too.
Massive change. I do think there's a reason why programs are, 30 days, 60 days. Those first 30, 60 days are tough. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of loss. The gains don't feel that awesome. But again, let's focus on the next 5 minutes, next hour, whatever, next day. And then the gains start to pick up.
Yeah, the depths of change, physical, emotional, mental, like you're all in.
Yeah.
And so, and I was lucky enough to be able to survive all that and get through. And it does happen. There are defining moments when you do feel good. You do feel better. And you're like, oh, okay, this is what this is about. You have those moments after the fog clears where it does feel good. It does feel better, and you understand like this is how it could be.
Right.
And that's good. That's okay. And that drives you, I think, a little bit. At least it drove me a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To keep going.
Right.
So let me ask you this. You are young and you were in the corporate world. You were doing, that kind of stuff. What was the pressure like with drinking being such a social networking, all of that stuff in big corporate America? I imagine the pressures to drink were kind of a lot. What was that like for you to manage that, to navigate that?
I think a lot of it is self-imposed. When you meet new people, again, they don't have an identity about you. I think, for me, when I was getting sober, I've been sober, it's been much more in the whole culture of life. Like, oh, that's a normal thing that kind of happens now. So I already have probably a little bit of a leg up compared to becoming sober when you were, even before that. There's probably a much bigger stigma around it than there is today. But I do think that there is this like self-imposed, whether it's like not fitting in or, not going to be accepted. I'm not going to win that deal because I don't do this with them. I don't get caught in the shenanigans that they're going to get caught in. We're not going to get stories together. I think there's like all kinds of things you tell yourself in your head, but they're all things that you tell yourself.
Right.
They're not, very rarely did I come across somebody that was like, what, you're not gonna share this picture with me, or you're not gonna whatever, like you're just gonna have soda water with lime like, never did that, like, if ever. I can't think of a time where somebody was like made me feel lesser than because of it. It was only myself pressuring myself, like, oh, they're gonna figure me out, I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna whatever the stories were at the time. And so I feel like the pressure is much more self-imposed than it is an outside force. And I think that's what you have. I mean, a lot of this stuff I think is battling the inner dialogue, battling the inner feelings of
Right.
fitting in, looking like others, creating memories. So many people think that it's the alcohol that creates the memories, and that's not true at all.
Right. Right.
Right?
Oh, I was a firm believer in that. Yeah.
That's why you
For
woke up
sure.
and started drinking, like, I'm going to create a memory,
exactly,
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's not how it works. It helps. I mean, it helps because you're doing something together, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what you're really doing together. It's just like one aspect of what you're doing together.
Right. Well, it's like you said, it's not, the drinking isn't the event, and it was always the event.
Right.
That was a great way to put it, because, when I think about that, I'm like, oh yeah, it was. That was the focal point. We're going drinking. It's just a matter of, who we can invite, who's
Right.
right. But yeah, so that was a really good thing. The event that's the event.
Right.
Experiencing this is the event. Not drinking is, yeah. So that's cool. Another thing I thought about too when you were talking about that is my wife never knew me as a drinker.
Yeah.
She's only known me being sober. Your wife knew you when you drank and knew you when you were sober, which I just think is kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Because I stayed in my environment and created a new identity that people had to accept or not.
Right.
Right? Whereas, your story was a little different. You left and were able to create that new identity with people. And so that mix was different. And so I just find it fascinating because, sometimes my wife will say, I wonder what it would have been like to be with you when you were drinking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so they never knew me. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing in terms of your wife and that relationship and now being sober. How's that been different for you with her?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I could have done it necessarily without her. She obviously, well, maybe not obviously because people can't see this, but like, she was not a big drinker, but she is not opposed to drinking. She likes a drink as much as the next person, and will have fun drinking culturally or whatever. But so she accepted me on that end, but really was like pushing me towards, you gotta knock this off.
Right.
And so she was such a rock when it came to that. She never was one that shamed or had any sort of little microaggressions about drinking. Like, nothing ever was like a slip. Like, hey, let's go out and
Right.
do this tonight. And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I forgot.
Right.
Like, that never type of thing never happened. And we often joke. I mean, I was drinking a lot still even after college, but like during college, we both joke like we never really would have worked. Like I guess I had gotten sort of sober and then relapsed, even though it was more of a planned reintroduction of alcohol. So I'd already kind of like gone through that and started to change in part of college, the very end of college. So I'd kind of already started that path, but even once I started to, once I got sober and then started to reintroduce, it quickly just like sort of came back in a way. It was different, but it still came back heavy. But I had worked through that and talked through that. So she had seen me kind of through, a halfway stage, I guess, in a way. And so, yeah, we joke like it never would have worked back in the day. But it's, again, I couldn't have done it without her. And it was huge to have that type of person in my life that, yeah, I could trust with that, and was there is doing much work around it as I was, in a way.
Nice. Yeah, I think that having a support like that, or a mentor, that's one of the things that I really appreciate about, you know, programs, or the mentorship that you get in that.
Right.
And so, for me, I had, my older brother, my middle brother to look at. I really had both ends of the spectrum. My oldest brother was in a lot of trouble and drinking, and still has never given it up, and it's always gotten him in trouble. And my middle brother got sober before I did, and I got to see the changes in the things that he was doing, and that that really helped me be comfortable with saying I have an issue, I have a problem, and admitting to myself. So his pathway before me really was beneficial and helped me a ton in my own sobriety, in terms of that. Whether, he didn't even, I mean, he did help me through some things at certain times, but, just his presence and understanding that, watching him go through and be successful with it, that was super, inspirational for me. And so having that kind of, thing in my life where I could be like, oh, okay, so my brother can do it, I can do it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
that was super huge. And then the mentorship that I got with people was really big. And I always am, I've mentored a couple other people since being sober, and giving it back, and you know what I mean, like helping other people realize and understand it a little bit. I have people ask me all the time about it, like, what's it like? Like, how did you know what I mean? Like, just to understand it.
Right.
Not that they're necessarily on that path, but so I constantly talk about it. It's, like I say, it's part of your identity and who you are.
Right.
And no questions off limits for me. So mentorship is a big thing. Did you have any mentorship
I mean,
in your sobriety?
yeah, I mean, mentorship, I think mentorship and modeling are huge, right? You are obviously one of my main mentors in this arena. I mean, as long as I've known you, you've been, I obviously didn't know you before then. So you've been a huge mentor, and I'm grateful for that. And then I have another uncle who's been sober as long as I've been alive. and I used to spend a ton of time with him when I was younger. And so I've seen the modeling of sobriety and always known that it was possible to be successful at it. And I think about this outside of sobriety too, just with the careers you choose, the hobbies you choose, the where you live, all that stuff. I think if you can't see somebody doing it, it's really hard to imagine yourself doing it. You know, there's a reason why people who have like doctors as parents or doctors in the family become doctors. There's a
Right,
reason why
right.
people who have a long lineage of teachers in the family, or
Carpenters or
carpenter,
whatever.
right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
because that's the path that you can imagine forward. And so I could imagine sobriety would be really hard if there weren't people close to you that weren't doing that.
Yeah. Forging that path for the first time alone
Right.
with that, yeah,
Would be real hard.
would be tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think it's important to see it, and if you don't have that in your life, to get involved in an organization and know that you can see a lot of other people doing that.
For me, the hardest thing to navigate still in sobriety, and it's part of, it's a big part of recovery is, you know, letting stuff go to control the stuff that you can control. And I find that that's probably the hardest thing for me still is I want to control it. I want to be in that understanding of you can't, dude. You can't. Like there comes point, and I'll get myself still to a point of frustration before I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You know what I mean? Like you can't continue. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't can fix it, dude. You can't control it. And I think that's been the hardest point for me personally in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How about you?
I think mine's kind of come in phases. Obviously, I think the beginning, so much of it was like crafting a new identity. I think now I'm way past that, but at the beginning, that was, there was such a, this is, I prided myself on my ability to do X, Y, and Z. Drink the longest or remember everything from every night type of thing.
Yeah, that was real different for me.
Yeah. No. but just being,
Right.
there's just different, you have identities wrapped around the type of drinker you are, the type,
Yeah.
So that was kind of phase one. I think now I'm more in that phase of like, and this might not just be sobriety, this just might be in general, but like being present, getting more, putting more emotion or feeling more emotion when you do see something like this behind us, or being more intentional about creating those memories and moments and creating the energy of life, I guess, is part of, when you don't have, when you're not chasing that chaos, as
Yeah.
somebody put
Yeah.
it so well on our
Right.
podcast before, Josh at Flared Outdoors, chasing that chaos, like life does slow down a bit, and figuring out how to get the dopamine receptors or whatever chemical in your brain firing when you're not firing on some chemical that you're putting in your body is difficult, and it's a constant challenge of like making, not for the sake of making something fire dopamine in your head, but just accepting like this is awesome,
Right.
this is beautiful,
Right.
and saying that stuff out loud to yourself, because there is kind of like a when you stop drinking in a weird way, because things slow down, because things aren't go go go, because you're not in the middle of the dance floor dancing, because you're not putting chemicals in your brain, life does become just a little dull. Right. I'm not saying like
Mundane.
it's not a
Yeah.
bad dull, but it's just different.
Right.
Like
Right.
you slow down, and so you have to learn to, okay, what makes this so awesome about this, and just be in awe of the world a little bit more, be more present. And that's, I think, what I struggle with the most right now, and what I'm working through is like just being in awe.
I can tell you one thing that will fire the dopamine is hooking a big fish.
That's true. That's true.
Catching a 20-inch cutthroat.
That'll do it to you.
And I think too, I mean, here's the thing. when life slows down like that, you need to find things that help you consume some of that time. Where I used to spend time and effort drinking, that's shifted. People are like, how can you fish so much, right?
Right.
That's one of the things that I took to that gave me a sense of peace and a sense of serenity. When you're out fishing at the base of something like this and you're looking up,
Yeah.
whether you're catching fish or not, there's a peacefulness and a serenity that you understand that's so much bigger than me. And that helps me with the control stuff. This entire trip, we've carried bear mace, cans of bear spray on our belts because that's the only thing I can do. We're in some place that's far greater and bigger than anything I can control.
Right.
All I can do is protect myself.
Right.
And so when you think about it that way, fishing's become, for me early on it was golf. I golfed a lot when I first got sober. I played a lot of golf and played a lot of golf by myself, and it gave me something to focus on and clear my head and do those things. And then it became fishing. And that's been it for me since.
Yeah.
But that's what it's given me in terms of that idea of what do I do with that time I used to dedicate to drinking.
Right.
And it provides so much more than just filling time.
Yeah.
I've learned through it, that I can't control everything. So that's been hugely important for me.
Let me ask you this.
Hmm?
Do you think those hobbies just grabbed you? Or do you think you had to I don't say force yourself to like them, because you probably liked them you wouldn't do it if you didn't like it at all, but did you have to put in extra effort to make those things grab hold of you?
For me, no. The first time I went fly fishing, a buddy of ours, I was in Boulder and I was newly sober, and I had another buddy of I who were hanging out quite a bit together, and there was another friend of us who fly fished, and we started talking about it, and he was like, I'll take you guys up. And so we went up above Boulder, up on South Boulder Creek, and hiked back into this spot. And there was nobody else except the three of us, and snapping flies off and getting snagged in trees. It was amazing because of where we were, what I was feeling and experiencing for really the first time.
Yeah.
With the hiking back and the place I was and the beauty of it and all of that. And I think it was one of those first times that I was like, I really felt what it was like to be in the outdoors.
Yeah.
And be present in all of this that was going on. And I was just like, how the fuck did I not know about this before, right? And that was the first time I felt it. And I happened to be doing the activity of fly fishing, and it was immediate.
Yeah.
I think that was just boom. And after we went that first time, I was like, Todd, when are we going again? Gavin, let's go fish. Let's go. You know what I mean? Then it became almost the shift in addictions.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because we have that addictive personality.
Yeah.
Whether it's music, whether it's, my brother, huge deadhead, you know what I mean? He went full bore into that, when he discovered that in sobriety and and I think that's it. People who are addicted to alcohol or drugs or whatever have addictive personalities, and fly fishing filled that for me.
Yeah.
And it became really that thing, and just has now become, I was pretty intense about it. I changed as a fisherman.
Yeah.
It's not about counting fish for me anymore. It's
Right.
not about, how big of a fish can I catch. It's not about that, because the process is so different for me.
Yeah.
As I've aged through it. It used to be about that, like how many fish can you catch, but it's not anymore.
Yeah.
And now it's just a part of who I am and a way of life that allows me to stay grounded in humility.
Yeah.
And I think that that's such a huge part of my sobriety, is being humble and understanding my deficits and the things that I struggle with, and how I go about lessening those.
Yeah.
And so fly fishing and being here and outdoors is such a huge part of that for me. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I think you got to try things.
Yep.
You got to, fishing might not be your thing, golf might not be your thing, running might not be your thing, but I think you got to get out and try things and find what grabs you. And for me, like, fly fishing is awesome. I love it. I love this. I love being outdoors. I've always loved being outdoors. But I think that it does take, some work of, like, letting things grab you too.
Yep.
And not letting, being open to new things grabbing you.
Absolutely.
And trying with the intention of, like, this is going to be awesome, not this is going to suck.
Yeah. Open mind.
Like watching the kids at Yellowstone be there because they had to be there versus the kids who were like, this is cool, right?
Right.
Like, that's the difference in
Yes.
that little mentality.
It's a slight nuance,
It's a
but
slight nuance.
it's noticeable,
Right.
And it is. It's important to be open-minded about doing things and really trying things.
Right.
There was a time when I would have never bungee jumped, but I did. It was awesome, and you know what I mean. Just trying new stuff like that and getting those experiences,
Right.
It's huge.
Yep.
So that's a great point.
Well, this is awesome, man. I appreciate you always being in my life and helping me navigate this challenge and being a, I won't say shining beacon, but a beacon in the distance of which
Nice.
to attain.
Well, Ed, I admire you obviously in what you're able to accomplish at such a young age, and what you're doing and the way that you're living your life, and it's admirable and it's impressive. So keep it up, brother. It's
Appreciate
good stuff. Yeah.
Appreciate that. And I guess for everybody in the community out there listening, watching, if you're struggling with any of this, you always have friends here to come talk to. As the community continues to grow, I'm sure there will be plenty of others that you can create those connections with who will be open and willing to support you and mentor you and model this for you as well. But if you're ever struggling, do not hesitate to reach out. We're always here to talk about this.
Yep.
Something important to us. So
No questions
not
are off
alone.
limit. Yeah. Nothing's off limits.
this is a great episode, man.
Awesome, dude.
Beautiful view.
Look at this, huh? Yeah. Killing
Great
it.
trip.
Yes, indeed.
Few more days of this
Yep.
and get up to Northwest Wyoming.
It's unreal. Unreal. Vast.
It is vast.
We got some fish to go catch.
We got some fish to go catch. So let's go do it.
Let's do it, brother.
All right, man.
Love you, buddy.
Love you too. See ya.
That's all for today's episode. Thanks for listening. Make sure to visit our website, guysfishingweekend.com, to check out the GFW merch, sign up for our newsletter, and learn how to get involved with the community. We appreciate you spending even a little bit of your week with us and are glad to have you along on the journey. Stay legendary and happy fishing.